Hello, everyone. This is JT Keating from Zimperium. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here. Thank you very much for joining us for another webinar. We're very excited about this one. We loved doing webinars on topics that really matter to people. We also love doing webinars with our good friends from Zimperium. So a couple perfunctory conversations, as we always like to say. We're going to try and keep this to about 30 minutes worth of content. Then we'll do Q&A at the end. If you would like, use the Q&A capability that we're all very familiar with now in the wonderful world of Zoom. And then we will address those. If there aren't any questions at the end, then we'll just give you some time back. There will be an archived version of this up on the site within a day or so. We can also make slides available to everybody. So with that, let me first introduce my partners in crime here. First, and actually, if you guys could introduce yourselves and give a little bit of background in terms of your roles. First, I'd like to welcome our distinguished colleague from VMware. So Matt, can you introduce yourself and explain your role?
Sure, Matt Lasak, in the field CTO office for VMware on the end user computing side of the house. So it's in my role, it's 100% customer facing. Essentially, we help customers with strategy and what they're helping them develop a strategy or move forward on strategies around any and all things end user computing related.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Definitely look forward to the part of the conversation. And then Kern, how about introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks, JT. My name is Kern Smith. I am responsible for our pre-sales team here in the Americas at Zimperium, and definitely looking forward to the conversation here.
Perfect. So folks, what we're going to do is we're going to run you through a little bit of a forest view. We're going to frame things up for you a little bit in terms of what we're facing here, the type of attacks we're dealing with, and then how specifically VMware, Workspace One, and Zimperium Zips come together. So we're going to hit a little bit from a high level standpoint, combination of the three of us. And then Kern's actually going to run through a demo to actually kind of visualize it. We're trying to help people with Zoom fatigue, which we've all been having. So the topic, as you guys know, because you signed up for it, is all about how to stop phishing and malware attacks on Chromebooks. And the reality is, there's this old expression about a bugbear, and a bugbear is this imaginary goblin that's out there. Phishing and malware are definitely not bugbears. They're definitely not, especially in the mobile world. To give you an idea, we saw literally a 6x increase in phishing attacks from Q1 to Q2 in mobile and Chromebooks, and that is largely driven by COVID. Same thing with malware. So these things are very real for all platforms. The ones we're focused on today is in the Chromebooks world, because especially, as we all know, the world has shifted, right? And people are working from anywhere, working from home, et cetera. They're doing schooling from anywhere, and they're using multiple devices. And especially as everybody overnight had to start working remotely, they had to work from pretty much any device that they had. And a lot of people, Chromebooks were device they have. So we're like, okay, what do we need to do to protect them? And the reality is, these devices are under the same attacks as traditional endpoints and under the same attacks as all mobile devices. In particular, and we'll go into this a little bit, and Kern will be talking about it as well. We're talking about what we call DNAP in the mobile threat defense space. Device exploits and compromises, ultimately trying to take over the device itself, right? Which is obviously goal number one of a bad guy, is to be persistent. The way to do that on Chromebooks is to actually elevate privileges, compromise device, whatever the case may be, basically rise above containerized apps. We also have network attacks, fake Wi-Fi networks, things on those lines, mobile phishing, and mobile malware. So these are the risks that Chromebooks are facing, just like pretty much any other platform. Now, as you look at this, there's a couple related markets that are all kind of in and around this. And this is part of why the partnership between Zimperium and VMware is so great. VMware, if you look at the Magic Quadrant for UEMs, and Matt's going to kind of run us through this whole world here in a quick second. VMware is one of the absolute leaders in that space. Magic Quadrant, far right, upper right, major leader in that space. That is unifying the management of traditional mobile endpoints, and Matt can, I'm sure, even talk about the future IoT, other sorts of platforms. Chromebooks being one of them. Matter of fact, VMware's UEM on Chromebooks is one of the only UEMs out there on Chromebooks, hence the reason we're doing this webinar. Then you have the threat detection side of the world. For traditional endpoints, that has been called EPP or EDR in Gartner speak. On mobile endpoints and Chromebooks, that's really mobile threat defense. So if you kind of layer over the VMware and Zimperium world, the unified endpoint management piece is Workspace One. The EPP EDR world is VMware Carbon Black. And then the mobile threat defense piece is Zimperium. So with that, Matt, can you kind of step us through and kind of frame up for people the platform that is Workspace One?
Sure, JT. So I'm very excited about this platform. We set out on this journey many years ago. And the beauty is a combination of several things. So it's where the industry has shifted and embraced the whole UEM framework has enabled this platform to evolve from the mobile side across all the different devices and platforms that all end users use, right? And that's physical endpoints, mobile desktops, laptops, Chromebooks, virtual applications, in cloud or on-prem. And it's a lot for IT shops to manage, right? And figure out, how do I gain, consistent visibility? How do I manage this? How do I see what users are doing? How do I, prepare for something to show up at the, from a line of business requesting a particular application or device or use case without having to rewrite everything that they've invested in or rip out and replace something. Our goal was to build a platform and get out of the tools mindset, right? Because tools are very, very micro-focused. Platforms enable you to take a look at end user computing holistically, because there's a lot of layers, right? You have to figure out from an IT perspective, how do I onboard these devices? How do I get them users' applications? How do I know who Matt Lisak is and where he's coming from? And is he trusted in these environments? And should he get access to the applications that he needs? But on the flip side, what's that experience like for users? And that's a huge focus for us, to make sure that users, as they go and consume this platform, is that it's consistent, it's very personalized for them. They can gain access to what they need to gain access to, no more, no less, and not worry about multiple passwords and multiple URLs and different app stores they have to go to get certain applications. It's just all there for them to consume in a very simple model.
That is awesome. That is perfect. And so again, back to the framework, as we were talking about, there's the management layer and the management infrastructure along the lines of what Matt was discussing. And then there's the threat detection part. And this webinar, of course, is about specifically kind of how we're dealing with and detecting things like malware and phishing on Chromebooks, et cetera. So shifting to the threat detection side, Kern, can you run us through the couple slides to frame up the zips part? Then we're going to come back to how the two come together and then go for the demo.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, JT. So, one of the things that, we focus on is to be able to take advantage of a lot of these tools. You have to have kind of a starting point, at least from a threat defense standpoint, right? It really boils down to identifying not just the threat, but also risk conditions that could lead up to a threat. So both risk and threat, so you can take proactive steps to minimize your risk. And if and when a threat occurs, you now have visibility, and with the full stack integrations between Zimperium and VMware, both on the UEM side and on the intelligence side, along with all the other components within it, like Carbon Black, give full visibility across all endpoints and full management capabilities within that single pane of glass, single platform. So for us, the way that we approach, threat detection specifically for Chromebooks, but also mobile devices in general, it comes down to detecting both known, but also more importantly, unknown threats across device, network, application, and phishing items. The way that we do that is with our Z9 detection engine. This engine has been trained in the lab using machine learning techniques to basically create a smart engine that sits on the device and looks for indicators or behaviors that are indicative of maliciousness, right? Doesn't matter if we've ever seen that before, bad is bad. So if it's a malicious applications put onto the device, doesn't matter if it's the first time it's ever been installed out in the wild or the 100th time or 10,000th time, doesn't matter. Bad is bad, and that's what the Z9 engine is there to pick up on, along with other things like phishing attacks. Phishing is very, it continuously evolves. So it's not enough to just say, okay, we're going to rely on, back-end databases, right, of what's happened in the past. Our engine has been designed to pick up on those ever-evolving attacks, especially in a targeted attack scenario where a link may only be active for 15 minutes because it's targeting a specific user or specific persona. So really being able to stay ahead of that evolving landscape is really what that Z9 engine has been designed to do, using those machine learning techniques. But more importantly, being able to do that detection on device is as critical, especially as we're in, kind of work from home modes, where these devices, like you can't always maintain network connectivity, but also ever increasingly in a BYO scenario, privacy is sacrosanct. So being able to do that detection on device without having to analyze data from the device on a back end, especially in a BYO scenario or say highly regulated environment for GDPR, California Privacy Shield laws, et cetera, becomes very advantageous. And then integrating that within the overall pane of glass and platform that VMware has to provide really becomes an advantageous situation for customers, where they extract maximum value from the investment that they've made and now gain full visibility across all of their endpoints across the board. So JT, if you want to go to the next slide. So the way that we do this from a Zimperium perspective, Matt eloquently outlined kind of VMware's full stack platform. Zimperium is really there to kind of fill in the visibility component and the mobile threat defense detection on both Android and iOS, but importantly Chrome OS. The way that we do that is first with a console-to-console integration between our Z console and the VMware UEM and intelligence consoles, where the UEM console manages the device. The intelligence environment is able to receive the telemetry that we're able to provide based on the privacy configurations and correlate that across and give users a broader view into their entire infrastructure. And backing all that up is the Zimperium system, which involves our Z console and our Zips application. The Zips application gets deployed and sits on the device and really starts with what are the risks associated to the device, be it configurations, OS, even applications installed on the device, right? Legitimate applications, but may exhibit certain risks, to the user or to the device itself, but then actively being able to tie in threat detections, pull the forensics, and then feed in automated remediations either directly with the UEM or through Workspace One Intelligence, or both through different automations and policies and things of that nature, while giving that full, providing the telemetry to give customers that full 360 view across all their entire infrastructure using intelligence. So I'll kind of pause right there. Go forward.
So Matt, can you, as a part of the overall platform, can you kind of give the, the vision, the direction, kind of the concept behind the trust network, as well as Workspace One Intelligence? And then Kern, you can, if you'd like, add a little bit additional commentary. You were hitting a lot of the points already, and then we'll pivot over to showing it. But first, Matt, can you kind of frame up a little bit the intent behind Workspace One Intelligence?
Sure. And again, I think this just showcases the power of building out a platform versus a tool. I have this conversation a lot with customers when we're trying to educate them on, they use XYZ today, and why would they look at Workspace One? Why would they consider it? And I think this is a great example. So Workspace One Intelligence is a component of the platform, and the trust network was born out of the same concept of, okay, if we can see who Matt Lisak is, what apps he's using across multiple devices or virtual desktops or published applications or whatever he's doing, SaaS-based applications on his Chromebook, which I use every single day. I use a Chromebox with two 4K monitors. Or I switch over to my Galaxy S20 or my iPhone 11 or whatever I'm using. We can see that at the platform layer, but we said, hey, we have to take this up and add a component called intelligence so that we can take that information, abstract it out, do analysis, do automation, which has been very, very popular and critical from a value perspective for our customers, is saying, hey, how do I take all this stuff that I have in the platform, ingest it in, and then take actions on it and bubble up information? And the trust network was, hey, how do we enable third parties to come in from our security partnerships and add value into the equation? And again, I think this Zimperium showcases it perfectly, where, hey, we can't do everything. And so let's enable partners to go out there and add value into this space. And, so they can showcase back to the customer, hey, look, we can help you, with mobile threat defense on Chrome and mobile, and ingest that in across the entire platform to provide a holistic approach to these devices. So I would say out of all of these, customers are, I think it's just a natural evolution of once they start learning what the platform can do, this is the next step, is saying, okay, cool, I get that I can do all these things, but I need to start running reports. I need to start doing automation. I need to start taking action. I want to see what's happening from a security perspective, and not only see what's going on, but take action on it and do remediation into these different threats so that I can automate across the board how to protect my entire end user computing portfolio.
Yeah, no, I think it's and to me, I think we are literally just beginning to scratch the surface, because some of the stuff I think is going to be really interesting from the automation standpoint is between endpoints. Or, if you get data from a firewall, can you do something different from an endpoint standpoint? If you see something on a mobile device, can you use that to potentially impact things on a laptop? So Kern, any additional comments before we dive into the demo?
Yeah, no, I think, I would just generally agree with everything Matt just said. I mean, I think what a lot of customers are kind of struggling with is a bit of point fatigue, if you will. And what they're really looking for is an approach where they can use both best of breed technology for certain use cases that are kind of unique, where you can't take a one shot fixes all approach, but be able to feed that ultimately into an overall platform approach so that they get the best of both worlds, right? And we're not asking customers to make compromises in any sense, but being able to optimize lessons that we've learned from platform consolidation while also being able to use best of breed. And I think that's where the story between what Zimperium and VMware do within by fitting in Zimperium's mobile threat detection suite into the overall VMware ecosystem and platform, with management through UEM, with Workspace One Intelligence, and then blending that with the visibility that and the control that VMware can offer, using both their solutions and also things like Carbon Black, but also other third-party items, including Zimperium, and really allowing the customers to extract maximum value out of really what is kind of minimal investment at that point for them.
That's perfect. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Kern, I will pass it over to you, and we can actually now show some of this stuff we're talking about. And again, folks, if you have any questions, drop it in the Q&A section. So with that, Kern, I have released the con.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and show some things. So I just want to walk everyone through what this can look like from a broad sense of view. And JT, just spot check me. Can you see the proper screen here?
Yep.
With okay, great. Yeah. So what we do is, from a general standpoint, what we want to do is integrate. Start with device management, right? So what we do from Zimperium side is integrate with the UEM console. You can see I'm integrating with the Chromebook devices, so that as Workspace One starts to manage those Chrome devices, they can start configuring policies, start deploying things like applications to the device, things of that nature. And then once we have that configuration taking place, what we'll also do is start sending that threat data to the Workspace One Intelligence console. So what this means is that if a device were to encounter a threat, first off, we'll have the Zips application deployed through Workspace One to the device and activated. And then as the user goes off on their day-to-day basis, I'll walk through a scenario where the user is being phished to install a piece of malware. Well, if the user clicks on that phishing link that's hyperlinked, you'll see Zimperium says, hey, this URL is risky, don't go any further, and this can be controlled by policy. But if the user decides to go further, or we decide to allow them to by policy, and they download that piece of malware on the device, we'll see, Zips is able to detect that there's a malicious piece of the malicious application on the device itself. But also more importantly, we can start enacting policy. But in this case, the impact of having a piece of malware on the device, I'll just show the example on it. The attacker is able to open up a reverse shell to the device and use that app space. They could drop an exploit payload or something like that to the device, or actually use this for surveillance activities. So for example, they may want to start taking pictures of, say, an unaware pre-sales engineer as they're prepping a demo late at night for a webinar the next day, and start being able to do surveillance at that point, as an example, right? So from that perspective, this is the type of thing that could happen, right? This is kind of a cheeky example of it, but this is typical of a chaining of attacks. But the great example is that with the integration with VMware and Zimperium, we could have taken direct action against the device locally. We could have initiated a UEM action just with the console to console integration from a UEM to Z console side, but also with the intelligence integration, we can start gaining insight into say, hey, what's occurring with these phishing threats that are taking place, and actually start understanding, all right, what are the device models, as an example, that I'm actually seeing these attacks happening at this point. So if I add that, we'll actually see that most of these phishing attacks were all happening on that Chromebook that took place. And if I want to expand out further and understand, all right, I know I'm getting phished, what does this mean for critical threats that are occurring on, say, corporate network or things of that nature? Well, now I can actually understand, hey, I've got a lot of malware events taking place. And if, again, just for the sake of demo at this point, we can expand that device model. We now see that all of these pieces of malware that were existing were on the Chromebooks. And that can then maybe drive me to leverage the automation tools that are in here. You can see we have an actual we have some filters and items around automation. And I can actually go in and look and say, look, if I see a critical event on a network, on a corporate network, we can now start using the intelligence platform, not just as a viewing capability, but also more importantly, as a policy generation capability, so that the security admins can put contextual rules in place using the forensics provided by Zimperium and all of the other integrations like with Carbon Black, et cetera, to start invoking automated actions, either using UEM, Slack, ServiceNow, or any of the other items that are opened up within the REST API framework and the open framework that Workspace One Intelligence provides. And I'll kind of let Matt speak to any other things I may have missed out. But the idea is that by being able to have granular detections on device for both known and unknown threats, that now opens up a plethora of opportunities for automation and remediation, so that this type of threat does not make that lateral movement off the device. And in fact, we can try to remediate or interrupt the chain of attack early on, so it does not end up at a critical component either on that endpoint or within the larger ecosystem for the organization.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add too is that what I think is powerful about this is that it's not an on-off switch. You as a customer can define exactly what actions you want to take. Do you want to start off with a notification? Do you want to, do you want to open up a ticket in ServiceNow? Do you want to, you can do all, you can customize it the way you want for your organization. It's not an on-off switch. It's not, hey, you've met this threshold, therefore we're going to do a device wipe. Or, I always think of like traditional tools, right? Where they'll say, hey, you've met this condition, okay, your device gets nuked. And then the user has no idea what just happened, or, they may not be aware that this threat's happening. So a lot of our customers like the flexibility of saying, hey, here's our process. We want to follow this process. We want to send these notifications. We want to escalate. We want to do these things. Oh, but by the way, we still want that nuke button just in case something bad is really going on, we don't have time, and we want to send that command out immediately, and it takes, literally seconds for it to execute.
Yeah, Matt, absolutely. And I think, just to kind of expand even further on that, I think there's being able to have that centralized area to observe and learn and modify and adapt policy as required, and be able to have the granularity to define and put, rules conditions in where it's not just a catch-all. If a malware event takes place, nuke the device, but it can be more contextual around if malware, if this device model, if on this network, if those type of things, where it really becomes a much more intelligence, the pun intended at that point, approach to the overall security ecosystem for our customers at that point.
Well, thank you guys very much. Folks, we're right near the bottom of the hour. That was perfect, guys. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section. And in the meantime, Matt, Kern, any other kind of last thoughts or comments, things that we haven't hit while we're waiting to see if we have any questions?
The one thing I'll bring up is when, if you're new to this, whole modern management and the security, everything is constantly changing, right? COVID's caused a lot of people to realize, wow, we've really got to change what we're doing. And I deal with that on a daily basis, trying to help customers figure out what their strategies are, how can we help, where can we fit in. The one thing that I would ask all of you, depending on what role you're in, is you have to unlearn what you have learned, right? To quote Yoda, you have to not view things like, hey, we've always done it this way. Can we just replace what we've always done with this? And I always challenge customers. I said, well, let's look at it differently. Let's say, well, what were you doing in the past? What was the outcome of that? And then say, okay, can we take a look at this and figure out how do we attain the same outcome, but just get there in a different manner? And it's really helped a lot of our customers when they look at these, the whole modern management, modern security approach to things. It helps because we're humans, right? We get comfortable with what we've always done, and changing is hard. But the beauty is once you've gotten over that and you see the power of what these platforms and these integrations can do, customers just go nuts. I mean, they start realizing, wow, we can start doing things that we've always wanted to do. I didn't know this was there. I didn't know I could automate these things and just make your lives a lot simpler. But also it helps on the user side, right? It makes users' lives a lot easier and a lot more simple as they go to consume this.
Perfect. No, I completely agree. I think the automation component is the part that I'm very encouraged about, right? Well, it's correlation between different elements and the automation. Because as we know, I mean, alert fatigue, and I mean, human beings can't absorb and then make decisions in a timely fashion. So being able to actually do that, I think, is huge. So we do have one question, and I'm not sure. I think, Matt, you might be able to address it because I think it's going to depend on the definition of the API. I think the API might be associated with Workspace One Intelligence. The question is this integration new? I had seen the publication stating the API would be leveraged by Zimperium last year once VMware announced the API. So I think her point is around the fact that when we first announced our integration and partnership with Workspace One Intelligence, the trust network and some of the APIs were relatively new.
Yeah, that was last year. Yeah, right. No, this is live. No, you can do this. So there was an announcement. Don't hold me to. I don't go by dates. Everything's too blurry. I always go by events. So VMworld last year, right? There was actually a couple of years ago we talked about this concept, and then it's evolved, right? All these things evolved. But the beauty of the platform is that you just go along with the ride, right? So that as a customer, as you're consuming this, we do monthly releases. I mean, it's just, this stuff is changing constantly and getting better. But no, this is just an extension of what we announced over a couple of years ago. It's shipped. Again, I don't go by dates, I go by events. This July, there was announcements that we did joint announcements with you all and others. And again, this is just an extension of that going into, from a Chrome perspective, and then on the mobile side with the Zimperium partnership.
No, that's perfect.
Hopefully that answers your question, but it's not new per se. from that perspective. Okay.
Yeah. She said thank you. So
Yep.
you nailed it. Well, guys, thank you very much. And everybody, thank you for giving us your time. With that, we will just wrap things up. Matt, Kern, great working with you guys per usual. Look forward to doing a lot more. And with that, I will bid everybody a great day. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.